The function of the economy is to determine what we will produce, how we will produce it, and who gets it. We want an economic system that determines those things in a way that maximizes human flourishing. In our economic system, who gets what is determined by demand. That is, demand determines the distribution of goods and services we produce. What slice of the pie you get depends on how much you are willing to pay for that slice. There are two features of our economic system which are important here. One is property rights, which means that the owners of something get to decide what they want to do with it. They reap the rewards and bear the burdens of ownership, and others are not allowed to steal that away from them. The second is free markets, which means that all people are able to choose whether or not they want to buy or sell something for themselves. No one is forced into a transaction they would rather not make. All trade is voluntary. When people are free to trade, goods will gravitate towards those who are willing to pay the most for them. When we look at a demand curve, people towards the top of it are the ones willing to pay a lot for this product. There are many reasons that someone might be at the top of the demand curve. They might be rich, that is one reason, but more likely than that, they just really prefer this product over alternatives. They don't want to substitute this product with something else, and so they're willing to spend their money here. Likewise, people towards the bottom of the demand curve are willing to pay very little for the product. There are people who probably prefer some alternative to this. If this is Coca-Cola, they prefer Pepsi. If this is Apple computers, they prefer PCs. They are only willing to spend their money on this product if it is so much cheaper than the alternative that they will sacrifice their preference for the savings. If there is scarcity or a limited quantity of this product, but the people who value the product very little are the ones who have it, they have a huge incentive to sell it to the people who value the product very highly. The people at the top of the demand curve are willing to fork over more than what the product is worth to the people low on the demand curve. Since they can't just steal it, voluntary exchange is the only answer. Through mutually beneficial trades, the people higher on the demand curve end up with the product they so desire, and the people lower on the demand curve end up with some extra cash to go buy the thing they really want. Demand determines distribution. When we apply that idea to some key sectors of the economy, we get some important economic insights. The demand for labor comes from employers who have some productive purpose they need workers to help them accomplish. When the product of people's labor is very valuable, which we call high productivity, then employers will be willing to pay a lot for that labor. Just like consumers of regular products, employers hope to end up with some consumer surplus, paying less in wages than what they're truly willing to pay. But just like we saw on the last slide, workers will gravitate towards the employers willing to pay the most. And a high demand for labor will be a force which pushes wages up, attracting talent to its highest levels of productivity, which is good both for workers and the economy overall. Labor is a resource we use to produce things with, but there are other resources too. We have a lot of options for how we will use our raw materials. Do we want to use our steel to build cars, airplanes, skyscrapers, or something else? Who gets the steel will depend on who is willing to pay the most for it, and that depends on the value of what they will be able to produce with the raw materials they acquire. Resources will be drawn to those who will get the most out of them, producing the things society desires and will pay a lot for, rather than wasting them on something people wouldn't give a second look. This is a really magical property of demand. It helps organize the use of our resources so that we don't waste what we have. we get what we truly want out of them. Perhaps the most surprising place this applies is with the demand for money. Yes, there is demand for money. Just like you can go to the store and buy a loaf of bread, you can also go to the store and buy a stack of money. It's just that the store is called a bank, and you pay interest on the loan in order to get it. But when you understand demand, you also understand the importance of financial markets. Those markets help lend money from those saving it to those who have a profitable idea and just need a loan to get started. The people who actually have spendable funds will be the ones most willing to pay for those funds because they have the best ideas for how to use them. Sometimes that's when you go grocery shopping, but sometimes that is a bank using their customers' savings to make a business loan. Demand is one of the central concepts of economics, and hopefully now you can see why. It doesn't take much theory to derive it, and when applied with some rules for an economic system, it explains a lot about how our world functions.